Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our last workshop of the spring series. If this is your first workshop and we haven't met yet, my name is Zane May, and I work in organizational development at the Community Engagement Institute. If you're interested in learning more about the work that Cy and I do and our institute, we invite you to check out our website. But probably more importantly than that, we'd invite you to reach out and start a conversation with us so that we can get to know each other. I'm joined here by Cy today, who's going to lead us in the fifth and final workshop of the spring series. He's going to be talking to us about going far together. This five-part workshop series as a whole has been focused on how we can enhance our teamwork and our ability to collaborate with others to meet the purpose and mission of our organizations and get work done in an effective and efficient manner. If you happen to have any technical issues or other things come up in the meeting, feel free to send me a message in the Zoom chat, or I will give you my email address and you can send me an email directly, and I'll do my best to help you with those. We only have an hour here together, so I want to make sure that we have all the time we can for Cy to go through his presentation and for you to ask questions and engage. So, Cy, I will hand it over to you. It looks like we're seeing your screen and we're ready for your presentation.
Absolutely. So thank you all so very much for being here today. As Zane said, we're going to learn today about how to go far together. We're going to think about how teams work best together, and we're going to talk about ways that you can maintain a team long term. We're going to try and be as interactive as possible. I know sometimes on Zoom that can be a little difficult. So be ready to have those uh those chat thoughts ready, and if we're feeling particularly wild, we might do some live talking and some live interaction like that. But hopefully today you'll come away with some new strategies and ideas for engaging and growing teams over time. And we're gonna try and do that by meeting a couple of specific expectations for today. First, we're going to focus mostly on positives. It's important to have some framing, and we want to use this hour to be as optimistic, hopeful, and action oriented. We are going to focus on some dysfunctions of teams. We're going to focus on some problems that teams run into. But most of the time today is going to be spent talking about positive aspects of teams. I'm also going to make sure that you leave here with a tool, because coming to a webinar on a Wednesday morning and listening to me talk for an hour is great, I think, but not super useful always after the time. So I want you to leave with something that you can use when you go back to your teams or your office, so you can say, maybe we need to approach this differently. Maybe we need to work on this at a little bit different angle. So the hope is not only are you going to take away some information, but you're going to take away something specific that you can use if you would like. We're going to do this through identifying some ways teams don't work well together. We're going to identify some ways to hold teams together, and then have this first contact with one framework for building and maintaining a team. Before we get really digging in here, I'd invite you to turn your camera on if you'd like to. We love the added energy of seeing everybody's face, but I understand if you're in a place where you don't have a camera, you don't want to turn it on. Any of that makes sense to me too. So don't feel obligated. Also, I've been getting over a cold, so I've got my hot tea here. If my voice sounds craggy or claggy, let me know. I'm trying to work on it as we get through here. I don't want to mumble my words or garble them, but I might a little bit. If you need some clarity, just holler. So, who am I to even be talking to you about team stuff? Well, my name is Cy Rogers, and I work at the Wichita State University Community Engagement Institute Center for Organizational Development, which is a whole lot of words to say that I work in organizational development at Wichita State University. I was born and raised in Wichita. I live here now. I love it here. I spent a big chunk of my life in Chicago as well. Feels very near and dear to me, but I missed Wichita. I like being here. I like the state of Kansas. I'm glad to be here with a bunch of other folks around the state and other places also. I love to talk. So this is great for me because you're a captive audience I get to talk to for the next hour. I'm really excited to get to lean into that. I'm a certified process communication model trainer. I'm a certified leadership coach and also a certified project manager. So got all these different credentials that hang on my wall that say I've learned some things about some things. And if you ever want to know more about any of those topics, please feel free to reach out to me. I put my email in the chat at the beginning of the meeting, but we're not going to be talking about those today. However, I am a firm believer that everything we learn up to any point in our life is something that we can use to put together our work or to do things in a better way. So some of the things that I've learned are going to creep in to what we're talking about today, but not in any particular specifics. The other thing is I probably need to update my headshot at some point. My hair is much longer. I think that's the last time I got a haircut, and it's now down past my shoulders, and I'm feeling a little strange about that in the moment. So I would encourage you throughout to utilize the chat if something resonates with you or if something feels interesting to you. Don't hesitate to interrupt and toss that out. I might not get to it in the moment, but if you have a question in the chat, I would love for those to be sort of stamped in there so we can address them as we need to. So let's dig in. We're going to talk about some things that disrupt teamwork, and we're going to use the chat. And I want to know something that you encounter or have encountered in your life and your professional experience that has disrupted teamwork. So put in the chat something you have encountered in your professional life, something that has disrupted teamwork. No communication, different views, lack of communication, attitudes, conflict, miscommunication, negative attitudes, passive aggressive communication, withholding of information, no commitment, lack of work ethic, disregarding some team members' contributions. That one hits me right in the heart there. Lack of effort, negative coworkers, work ethic. People who only look through the individual lens, not the team lens. Team member who values their own role as an individual more than the team's role. Time and resource pressure. So there's some internal teams things. There's some things that people bring with them. There's some external pressures. There's some behaviors, ideas being shut down, different views on what teamwork is and how to communicate. All sorts of problems, all sorts of landmines that get in front of teams as teams are moving into the future and working together. And you all clearly, I'm sorry that you've had to experience any of those things, but I'm glad that you've had because you're able to bring some expertise in knowing what not to do. And we're going to talk from one particular framework about what some specific dysfunctions might be. So I promised at the beginning we were going to focus mostly on positives, and we are. This is our one chunk where we're going to talk about negative stuff. Absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. And I think a couple folks typed those out word for word in the chat. So well spotted by you all. This 5 Dysfunctions of a Team was written by a organizational development practitioner named Patrick Lencioni. There's a book on this if you're ever interested in reading it. It's relatively easy to find most places. But absence of trust, he wrote on that it comes from an unwillingness or an inability to be vulnerable with the team. Team members who are not genuinely open with one another about their mistakes and weaknesses make it impossible to build a foundation for trust. Fear of conflict, which builds on the first dysfunction, a lack of trust creates a fear of conflict. Teams that lack trust are incapable of engaging in unfiltered and passionate debate of ideas. Instead, they resort to veiled discussions and guarded comments. Lack of commitment. No healthy conflict, or no conflict at all, can breed a lack of commitment. Without people having aired their opinions or had passionate or open debate, team members rarely buy in and don't commit to decisions. They may feign agreement, but they may not actually feel like they're a part of it or like they matter or are committed to the work. No commitment leads to no accountability. Without committing to a clear plan of action, even the most focused and driven people often hesitate to call their peers on actions and behaviors that are counterproductive to the good of the team. And inattention to results. A failure to hold one another accountable can create an inattention to results. This can occur when team members put their individual needs, ego, career development, recognition, or even the needs of their divisions above the collective goals of the team. Once these 5 dysfunctions all start playing together, the team might start to deteriorate and break down. So knowing this, knowing these particular dysfunctions and knowing this particular framework is kind of how we're going to look at the lens for the rest of the day. So keeping these things in mind, in your professional life, I want to know some things that you've done that have enabled positive teamwork. So what are some things that you have done that are the antidote to those dysfunctions? Just put in the chat there something that you've encountered in your professional life that has encouraged and enabled positive teamwork. Communication, listening to hear versus respond. A friend of mine once told me that you should, similar to measuring twice and cutting once, you should listen twice and speak once. I thought that was clever. Over communicating and recognizing others' achievements, being vulnerable, positive relationships, listening and showing empathy, listening, problem solving, collaboration, asking for input and feedback. That one's big. Some people don't want input and feedback, but asking is you're opening the door, you're engaging. That's well spotted. Seeking and honoring skills and life experience of team members, transparency, giving time and space to team members to share, encouraging everyone to have a voice, acknowledgement, encouraging different point of views, owning mistakes, modeling behavior, recognizing contributions, and matching roles to skill sets. That's a mouthful. That's awesome. Showing good work ethic and helping, being humble, owning mistakes, laughing together, assuming good intentions, lifting each other up, providing role clarity, gaining buy-in. So shout out to this group, first of all, because I have seen way more positive things about what enables good teamwork than negative stuff. So it sounds like you all are on good paths already, or you at least know what makes a really good team. So creating a win-win situation. I love this one about potlucks. People think potlucks can be corny. I think potlucks fantastic. I think we should bring those back in 2024, more potlucks. I think that's the direction we should head in. Creating a win-win for everyone. So along with you all and the organizations you've worked at and the work that you've done, other companies have done some research into what makes their teams work best. So Google did some research across their teams, I believe in 2012, that they discovered 5 particular dynamics that lead to team success. They found that psychological safety, dependability, structure clarity, meaning, and impact are the 5 dynamics that every team has to have in order for their team to succeed. They also found that psychological safety is number 1. It was the most important dynamic, And teams that could provide psychological safety were successful more often than other teams. Teams that feel safe, teams that feel safe taking risks and admitting mistakes, collaborating, stretching themselves, and setting new goals allowed for those teams to succeed because they felt safe with their options. Psychological safety is the basis for all the other dynamics because the others can't exist without psychological safety. Yeah, the five are psychological safety, dependability, structure and clarity, meaning, and impact. And we're going to go through those in more detail here too. So dependability, show up on time, meet standards, know that you will be there and know that others will be there. And by being yourself, by being the person that others can anticipate, successful teams demonstrate that every day. Team members who have clarity in their role and structure know how to accomplish their work. With unclear structure, some teams floundered because their members weren't sure of expectations or responsibilities. Meaning, being mission driven. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a lot of folks in this room today are in nonprofit organizations or in mission driven organizations. People holding to purpose, meaning, values, conviction, all of these things matter. Oftentimes, folks get into mission driven work because that mission is so important to them. Being able to succeed then means serving a mission as well as doing a good job. Being able to serve a mission creates higher levels of job satisfaction, especially in those mission-driven folks, which makes people want to show up, which makes teams stronger. I know that on our team, when we all feel like we're pulling towards something greater, we all feel like we want to be there and do a better job. Impact. Knowing your work matters. This means that even the most mundane tasks have some impact on outcomes. Filing boring reports, tracking hours, they're not always super fun tasks, but knowing that without them, the work can't get done is critical. Making sure employees and team members know how the work they do impacts the work everyone else does is really important to the team. For example, I spent my morning combing through Excel sheets, tracking budget trend data for the last 3 years. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but I know that it means something to my team if our budget is solvent and if we're healthy and we're thriving. I know that I can get through the boring, mundane work I might have to do if my team knows that it's important and if I know that it's important. So, a tip for folks that might be doing work where you think, I don't see the point of this. Ask the importance. Maybe find meaning in it. There's always a reason to be doing something. And finding that impact can help folks show up better for teams. So let's take 30 seconds on our own and think about where we've experienced these dynamics in the work that you do. If you're feeling particularly willing to share, I would ask you to share in the chat. You don't have to, but I just want you to think about where you're at now in your job. Where have you seen these dynamics show up? If you're wanting to share in the chat, I would encourage you to, but you don't have to. But if you wanted to share a shout out to where you're at now or work that you've done where these dynamics have showed up, would love to see it. Public health sector, and that closely aligns with mission and vision of community service. Absolutely. So you see within your team and within the work that you do, the mission that you're driven by. Great example and great way of illustrating how that comes up in different folks or how that comes up in different teams. Through the mission, I mean our work at the Workforce Center changes lives. Finding a good, absolutely good paying job or career can change a life. So you go to work every day and go, the work that I'm doing can change people's lives. That's incredible. Oh, one size did not fit all. Absolutely. We have a regional team who attempts to help design products for all regions. So you're having to think about how can I impact different people in different ways. Great. These are great examples. Um, thank you for your words. It's really great to see. So there's these 5 dynamics within teams, and there's also some team roles. So a gentleman named Peter Honey introduced a framework around how team roles and dynamics might work together. Within teams, you might see a leader, you might see a challenger, you might see a doer, a thinker, or supporter. And all of these roles can show up in anybody. So you may not be the director, but you might be showing some leadership quality. You might be the person who's newest on the team. It might be your first day, and you might be the one who is challenging things. You may not even be fully comfortable in the position, but you might be the one that pushes things and says, can we do this better? So I would ask again, how have you seen yourself show up in these roles? Maybe you showed up this morning at work and were the supporter because somebody really needed somebody else's support. But where have you seen yourself show up? Please feel free to answer in the chat. I know that I often show up to work as a supporter for my coworkers. I really like to make sure everybody's doing okay. Um, I see supporter. I've served each of these roles depending on team. Um, I have seen a breakdown in the team and psychological safety. Some members have expressed their unwillingness to share concerns, advocate due to fear of being shot down or told they're wrong or unopened to hard work. Yeah, that's Jill. Great calling that out. That is a thing that gets seen, unfortunately. Dabbled in all of these roles. Leader and challenger, cool kind of positions to be in. Supporter and doer, thinker. I think our small team takes turns depending on the task. Yeah, Heather, that's probably true. People cycle through these as they need based on the work or based on the person. The challenger is some team members. So new, you're the learner. Okay, cool. Uh, depending on which part of the educational team I'm working with, see yourself in each role. Yeah, and I think that we probably do show up in all of these roles depending on the day. And it would be hard to pigeonhole each of us and say, I'm only a doer. Well, only? You probably do so many things. But as some folks in the chat are saying as well, some of us do show up frequently as the person who is consistently the supporter, consistently the challenger, consistently the leader. And knowing these roles and knowing how to move through them can help keep your team flexible and connected. The challenge, oh, Kristen, thank you for this. It's going right into my next thing. The challenge is knowing which role is the best to show up in with each various team and setting. Absolutely. So the 3 habits of teams that are performing well are when teammates play to their strengths, because teams often face challenges that require broad skill sets. It would stand to reason that the best teams form by playing to strengths. The team members are able to use the best of themselves in collaboration with the best of others. The ideas developed are more profound when everyone is thinking in areas they hold strength in. It lets us fully develop ideas with everyone thinking from different angles, and team productivity is higher when teammates are in their own wheelhouse. When teammates feel safe to share new ideas, high-performing teams have high levels of trust and safety. Growth and innovation come from trust and safety. And when teammates are aligned on values, when teams share a sense of how they can win together. Somebody earlier in the chat said when things are win-win, and that's it, speaking directly to this. When we can win together, we not only get more done, but we're more creative in our output. We are able to build teams that can support each other, win together, and develop together more strongly. These teams also tend to be more impactful, more creative, and more innovative in the work. So when we're able to use our different roles while performing in these different habits, our teams are able to be as strong as possible. We're able to continue building them. We're able to continue providing good connective tissue. A theme that I've noticed so far is that trust seems to be kind of at the base of all of these things. Even when folks were bringing up problems, they're centered around trust. I don't trust that I can communicate this. And Google bringing up that trust is the baseline. Then all of these habits are centered around being able to trust one another. So I would ask to the room and put in the chat, this is kind of a big question. How do you foster trust in the teams that you work on? Put in the chat. How do you foster trust in the teams that you work on? Openness, being organic? Absolutely. Integrity, listening, accepting new ideas, transparency, communication, owning up your own lapses. That's a big one. Being dependable, consistent, professional. Communication we have within the team builds our trust. Dependability. Hear others and understand the viewpoint, even if you don't see it that way. Delegating. It's all sorts of ways here. I know for our team, we've been able to build trust by showing up consistently. Integrity is a big part of it. Being willing to listen to new ideas. Integrity, transparency, consistency in decision-making processes. Consistency is a big part of it too, because if you know what to predict, you know how people will respond, you can trust that response, and it's not just going to be some unpredictable thing. Not speaking ill of other team members or factions. Yeah, if somebody's speaking ill about somebody else while they're not in the room, who's to say they're not doing the same thing to you? Creating space to get to know each other, margin of error, make effort to build relationship with each team member, clearly communicate, try to listen more than talk. Man, there's so many good ideas here. One of the things I love about getting to do these presentations is getting to steal ideas from everybody. And I hope you all are stealing ideas from everybody else as well, because we're all the experts in the room. And some of these things I hope you're able to take and apply. Addressing issues at the source. This is great. Keep them coming if you'd like, but I'm going to move us on for the sake of time, but you all are on it. Thank you. So here at CEI, back in the day, we used to be called the Self-Help Network. And then after that, we were called CCSR. I don't actually know what CCSR stands for. If somebody does, feel free to let me know. But I was digging around and finding some resources to put this together. And I found a self-help network, 10 commandments for teams. It's the Center for Community Support and Research. Thank you, Zane. So these 10 commandments, I thought were just, I had to bring these in. Use vision and mission to guide decisions always. Yeah, Creedence Clearwater Revival. John Fogerty wrote these wrote these Ten Commandments. We're going to champion positive behaviors. We're going to always work toward win-wins. We're going to confront, manage, and diffuse fear. We're going to always be inclusive. We're going to courageously and carefully confront conflict. We're going to build and protect trust at all costs. We're going to model and reward risk-taking. We're going to disclose everything. And we're going to trust the process. These 10 things, if your team can do them, can probably be a stronger team. I know for us, and I think about just our team, there's just 6 of us. It's Zane and myself and a few others. And I think that we're always trying to work towards win-wins. And I think that we disclose everything, and I think we trust the process. But sometimes I do think that we could do a better job of using our vision and mission to guide decisions. I think sometimes we get lost in the details of the work, or the technique of the work, or the minutia. And maybe we should think of the bigger picture sometimes when we're doing things. So I would encourage you, while you're looking through this list of 10, to reflect and think, what am I doing well? And what can I take away from this list that I could maybe do a better job with? You don't need to tell me. This one's just for you. But if you leave here today and you think, yeah, I could do a better job at one of these, I would encourage you to do that. The hope is that with this Wednesday, we can leave here and build a stronger team after we leave this meeting. You can help set goals and help find resources and ways to overcome barriers. Great, that's fantastic, and we should all be pushing always. I see in the chat here, you've watched teams get divided on the execution of the vision and mission. Yeah, it can be hard. It can require kind of readdressing how to focus and readdressing how to work moving forward. So let's take a moment and check in here. We've had a whole lot of information so far, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So in the chat, I would love for you to say, what's a theme or a couple themes that you're seeing so far about how to keep your teams together, healthy, and happy for the long haul? So maybe something stands out and it's, potlucks. I think potlucks would be great. I wish we had more of those. If you think potlucks are the thing to keep our teams together, I want to hear it in the chat. Building trust, inclusivity. Ooh, they're coming fast. Connecting, removing fear, communicating. I'm going to go as fast as I can. Potlucks can never hurt. Creating a trustworthy process, united vision that guides decisions. Yeah, food is a huge motivator. Building each other up. I love the exclamation point. Virtual coffees and happy hours, honest communication, being able to go to each other even when you have to be confrontational, changing our own behavior, whatever that looks like in the moment. That one's really hard. Great call out. Trust and listening. Remote teams need to find a way to embrace potlucks. Yeah, keeping remote teams together, that could be a good topic too. It's a difficult way. It's more difficult. Trust and listening, team building days, discouraging unhealthy competition. Good call out there. Effective communication, effective listening, clear communication, team member strengths for each project. Psychological safety is something that I've been seeing and hearing a lot about and think is so important. So these are incredible. And so there's a million ways to make your teams thrive. And we've begun to scratch the surface here. Celebrating little wins, communication, all of these things add into building strong, healthy teams. But we're not going to leave here without a framework. We've got a lot of ideas. We've got a lot of thoughts. We've got a lot of inspiration, but we want to make that actionable. We want to be able to leave here today and go, here's kind of where my team is at. Here's kind of where I see my team going. And then you can know how to apply what you've learned about keeping teams together. Because it might change over the life cycle. There are a ton of models to doing this. I want to call that out. There's no one that I think is better or worse. I'm relatively agnostic about how to do what you need to do for your team because every person is different. Teams are made up of people. Every team is going to be different. This one's pretty broad and could be useful. So I encourage you to take it. But we are going to learn about the stages of group development, Tuckman's stages of group development. In fact, we are going to learn about forming, storming, norming, and performing. Now, I want to point out this is not a particularly novel concept. If you have heard about these 4 stages of group development, I would encourage you to raise your hand or do a little reaction or something. I would love to see folks that are already familiar with this process. I'm not seeing a lot, so good. It's all, hopefully this is as new as can be. So forming. Groups begin at the beginning. Teams meet, they learn opportunities, challenges, they agree on goals and get to work. Often in this stage, team members are quite independent and are motivated, but uninformed around issues and objectives of the team. The team and its members are also often on their best behaviors. We're getting to know each other. You don't want to push the limits. You don't want to push boundaries. Boundaries and ground rules get created. Organizational standards get created. Tasks and scope are defined. Approaches are agreed on, and long-term concerns are voiced. We're looking at big picture stuff in the beginning. In order to grow to the next stage, each member must relinquish a little bit of comfort around non-threatening topics and risk some potential conflict. When we're in the storming phase, which is the second stage of team development, this is when the group starts to really sort itself out, build a little bit of trust. Team members begin to voice opinions. There might be some conflict. Power and status might get assigned and tested. Team members start to learn how each other work and how to work as a team. Natural hierarchies and otherwise hierarchies develop. This stage can be positive and polite and pleasant. It can be excited. It can be eager. It can also be anxious or uneasy. Leadership is particularly critical during this stage because you've got people kind of testing out the boundaries they felt. I've got some coworkers who've got a couple of 2 and 3 year olds. They're talking about right now, those 2 and 3 year olds. They might be in the storming phase. They're testing those boundaries. They're seeing if they can get up the stairs. They're seeing maybe I can get outside while you've got the door open getting the mail. They're testing those little things. They're exploring the world. This is where you learn what the team is all about. In this stage, participants might form opinions about the character and integrity of other participants and feel compelled to voice these opinions if they find someone shirking responsibility or attempting to dominate. Have you ever been in that position where you said, I'm happy with the work, but Dan at the end of the hallway, I don't know what they've got going. Sometimes participants question the actions or decision of the leader as the expedition grows harder. I wouldn't have made that choice. I don't know why they're taking us down that way. That's not the way we should be going. Disagreements and personality clashes have to be resolved out of this stage so that teams may emerge from it. Now, you can revert back to here if your team gets far enough along and a new challenge or dispute arises. Let's say you've got a project, you've got a team, and it's going great. And then all of a sudden, your manager leaves. Well, now we got to reform our team, and we might have some jockeying, we might have some boundary testing, we might have some trust building that happens again. Norman, this comes after we've gotten through that storming, uncomfortable position. This stage has resolved disagreements and clashes that result in stronger team bond. Positive, healthy conflict can lead to stronger team bonds. From this, you get a spirit of cooperation. And this can happen when the team is aware of competition, when the team shares common goals. In this stage, all team members take responsibility and have the ambition to work for the success of the team's goals. Tolerance, understanding, and appreciation for other team members' whims, fancies, and work styles develops. In the storming phase, you might go, I can't stand the way Zane does his work. And in the norming phase, you might say, the way Zane does his work, it's really brilliant. It's just different than mine, but he accomplishes so much with the way he approaches it. There is risk here that the team might be so focused on preventing conflict that they are reluctant to share controversial ideas. So when things get kind of normal, things get kind of stale and regular, you might not want to challenge each other the same way that you have before. Remember, positive, healthy conflict can lead to stronger bonds and stronger work. That all comes from trust. Finally, performing. When norms and roles are established, group members focus on achieving common goals, often reaching unexpectedly high levels of success, going above and beyond what your team thought it could do. By this time, you're motivated, you're knowledgeable, and team members are now competent, autonomous, motivated, and able to handle decision-making process without supervision. Just wind folks up and let them go. They're handling it on their own. Dissent is expected and allowed as long as it's channeled through means acceptable of the team. So that ability to be confrontational, that ability to say, I don't think this is going the way it should, is handled. It not only handled, but anticipated and expected. So the work is stronger. Supervisors of the team during this phase are almost always participating. The team will make most of the necessary decisions, even though the most high-performing teams will revert to earlier stages in certain circumstances. Many long-standing teams go through these cycles many times as they react. Maybe it's a new year and a contract goes away, or maybe it's a new year and you hire two people retire. You've always got to adapt and change and learn. Changes in leadership, for example, can cause teams to revert to storming as the new people challenge existing norms and dynamics of the team. So using these stages, and they were developed by somebody named Tuckman, each stage has its own unique feelings, behaviors, and tasks. Knowing these feelings, behaviors, and understanding why things are happening is how you can kind of evaluate your team and then apply good team dynamics and good team process to keeping it together. So when your team is forming, you might feel excitement, you might feel some positive expectations, there might be some anxiety, behaviors, questions all over the place. Tasks that the principal work for the team is to create a team with clear structure, goals, direction, and roles so that members can build trust. Go meetings, healthy kickoffs, everyone on the same page with goals, approach, and etc. The team in the forming stage is focused on defining itself. Accomplishments may not be as high as in other stages. You're still kind of learning how to do things. You may not be getting as much done. You're setting the table, so to speak. When you're storming, the team might begin to move towards goals, and some members discover that excitement and expectations might not be what they wanted it to be. Disappointment can creep in, frustration and anger with the process can creep in, and there might be concern about inability to meet goals. There are ways to test conflict and see how it turns out. This happens a lot. Members might express frustration about constraints or boundaries. Expectations, roles, and responsibilities can often be the source of complaints. Arguments or criticism of the original mission or goals might come up. The team might need to refocus on goals, might need to break goals into component parts, might need to work on task skills, and might need to work on conflict management. During the norming phase, teams feel comfort, they might feel heard or seen, there might be acceptance, and there might be pleasure taken from the group cohesion. It feels good to come to work because my team is thriving. You might have some struggles with problem resolution, some harmony might develop. There might be more frequent and more meaningful communication among team members. There might be a willingness to help and share. You might develop some lingua franca. You might develop your own way of communicating. Productivity will increase. Energy shifts toward the work is common. And there may be a want to evaluate process and productivity. Hey, we're doing so good. Let's tell people how good we're doing. How can we measure it? Feelings in the performing stage. Satisfaction and progress, awareness of yourself, others, and group strengths and weaknesses. You might feel an attachment to the team, satisfaction and effectiveness. You might be confident in abilities and team. You might have a can-do attitude, and roles might become more fluid as people sort of navigate in and out and find strengths where they may not have known they had them. Differences in style and abilities are appreciated and leveraged to make the work better. The team will deepen its knowledge and skills. Work will get done more quickly. Progress gets made, and accomplishments are measured and celebrated. So, we want this to be actionable. Rather than listen to me talk about all this stuff for an hour, I want you to have something to take home today. So, you in the chat should be able to download a tool that will help you measure where your team is in those 4 stages. And I'll share my screen here and give you a little walkthrough on how you might use it. So take a look at your team and see if you observe these things. If you see signs of excitement, anxiety about the task, make a mark. If you don't observe it, make a mark. And then at the end, go through and total it up and see which one has the most marks for observed. That's probably where your team is at. From there, you can know how to begin addressing sort of root issues that come up. You can understand how to apply trust and communication, role fluidity in different ways. You can understand how to apply different team dynamics based on where your team is at. Because every team, at different stages with different people, is going to have different needs. So the hope is to take stuff we talked about in the first half hour today and apply it to measuring where your team is at and where it's getting its work done. So, kind of getting close to the end of time here, I wanted to allow a little bit of space for questions, if there are any. So I would invite you to either put them in the chat, or Zane, if you want to let folks unmute and they can ask and use the raise hand function, that would be great. But any questions, I would love to answer them if I can. Yeah, Deidre, I think the slides will be shared as well as I think the presentation itself will be posted. So Zane will probably have some more information about that at the end. But I do think those will be made available. The checklist is the term team leader used from an authority perspective or anyone can lead perspective. I believe in that checklist it's used from a authority perspective. Good ask. Is there another way to get the checklist? The download is not working for me. Jessica, if you want to email me directly, I'll put my email address in the chat and I'll send it over to you. So I'll go ahead and say, there's a list of sources. These will be in the PDF and everything as well. If you want to dig in and learn more, feel free to dig into these. Some of them are, easy links, and some of them are a little more complicated to find. Oh, I do have a question. What if things don't go as planned and performance is contradictory to the original set goals? How will you deal, especially if other teams are also involved in the process? So my approach in this regard is I would lean into that trust and communication piece and have an open communication. We call them postmortems in our office, or debriefs in our office after work if it doesn't go well, or if it does go well. And we say, here's what we learned, here's what we could have done better, and here's what we think we did great. But that way it allows you to adjust for the next time. So that way you're not just failing, but you're adapting. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, adjourning, and adjourning is on that tool as well. I was going to leave that be a surprise for all of you intentionally, so there was an extra thing that you could all dig into and hopefully inspire some research on your own after the session. Are teams that have consistent entrance and exit of different individuals ever able to stay in a phase, or do they always seem to revert back to storming? I think it depends on the team. I think some folks, if you bring in, so our team dynamic is really, really, really healthy. And we always worry, if we brought in a new person, how would we adapt to them? My personal feeling is, I think that we're all really adaptable people and we would have no problem with it. But other teams might have different struggles based on the style of personality or the style of person that's on that team. And different phases, there's not a particular timeline. Sometimes it's length of project, sometimes it's length of team being together. I would also anticipate that if a team has to go back to storming and it's uncomfortable, they may not be there for as long as they were at the beginning. So it's getting to be about 5 minutes before noon here. I'd like to thank you all for being here today. I appreciate you listening to me and participating. I gained as much insight from you all as I hope you gained from me. We will have another Rising to the Challenge series in the fall. And if you have any other questions or want to reach out to me, my email's in the chat, but I will hand it over to Zane to bring us home.
Thank you, Sai. All right, everyone, this is our last workshop. We will work on getting the recordings from all 5 workshops uploaded to CEI's YouTube channel. And if you've missed previous workshops, you can view those on the channel as well. I just added a link to chat that gives you a access to our evaluation. And if you would please take a minute to fill out the short evaluation, it helps us understand how we're doing and how we can improve the workshops for you. We also have space in there that you can tell us what topics or questions you have that we could build topics around so that we can make these future workshops engaging and useful for you. So please take a moment to let us know what's on your mind and what you'd like to see us offer in the future. We'll be back in the fall with another workshop series, and we will try to build that around the themes that we hear in these evaluations. Thank you all for attending. If you made it to all 5, we really appreciate the dedication that you showed showing up and being with us. Hope you all have a good afternoon and a great week, and we'll talk to you later.